So, welcome to our final game of this one. This is the fifth match. We are on the draw. We have a decent hand. We have a form of protection, in form of force of will with Periodine. We have a wasteland, and also we have a threat. So we are likely a little bit land heavy, but I think it's okay. We can keep this hand in the blind versus an unknown opponent. So we are running with this configuration. What we like to draw is some action in form, maybe a Delver could be fine, or even a later Murktide or Cutter. Our opponent is leading here with Ancient Tomb and Grim Monolith. You can decide to fight over the Grim Monolith, but I think it's never worth it unless we see a key. And here comes the One Ring, so we are fighting against Mystic Forge, and we counter the scariest card in the deck. So we have also the Wasteland. Our opponent showed us no key, so I'm pretty sure the game is busted on this stage of the game. Our opponent shows us a Planar Nexus, so if he can find an Urza's Land, he's back into the game with a Khan, maybe, or a Tezzeret. But this is our time window to apply pressure in form of Dragonwitch Chandler, and even if our opponent finds an Urza's Land, we can make use of our days. Here our opponent is playing a Pithing Needle mainboard, so it's really likely to name Wasteland, so we have used our Wasteland, there's no need in dazing this. And our opponent misses on his land war, so our daze is live. And we even draw another daze, and on this point of the game we are also willing to counter a voltaic key. On the end step here I'm going to surveil to make sure that we find more interactive cards and getting to our delirium. And from this standpoint I'm also boarding the face to fill our graveyard for Murktide, find some more interaction. So Wasteland comes into the bin because there's a Pithing Needle. We only have one Brazen Borer as a solution for this in the mainboard. So Brainstorm is fine. Dragonwitch Chandler, you can make an argument for keeping it and doubling the clock. Or bin it, and I decided here to keep it to hopefully double our clock speed. So we are getting rid of the island and 1 days to trade off with our clock, because now we can play the second Dragonwitch Chandler and our Ponder to make sure that we hit the Delirium to to make pressure against our opponent. There's the artifact, which is pretty good, and a creature, even better. So we have, after the resolving of the Ponder, achieved Delirium, and here we have Cutter, Bolt, and Delver. And here I'm just going doing the math. So if we attack for 3, next turn for 6, we have 9 points of damage, and we can draw into 2 cards of the tree. So if we play the board, our opponent is at we have 12 damage, and with the cutter trigger, it's exactly 12. So I'm keeping the board, and we know we draw into the cutter, and even if we have to use our days, we can play cutter and board next turn. So the game is won from here by easy math. So we are playing cutter, triggering the both Dragonwitch Chandler in case anything goes wrong. So maybe, I'm not sure what our opponent really could have at this point of the game. There's really nothing. Even a dismember mainboard would set our opponent set back in life. So I think our opponent is conceding here after seeing the lightning board, and he also agrees with that and concedes the game. So pretty straightforward. Key play was here in be patient with the force, to use it not on the Grim Monolith, instead of on the One Ring, and having Wasteland was really key of the game. For sideboarding, it's really straightforward. We get rid of the days and unholy heat. We want to make sure we run with meltdown, consign, and force of negation, and even you can consider price of progress. I'm also thinking you can trim one cutter. The matchup is not a cutter matchup, it's more if you survive the early waves of the combo deck, and then you can kill with any kind of clock. So I'm cutting here one cutter, and I'm thinking it's also fine in cutting one lightning bolt. You want to keep lightning bolts around to have direct damage, to kill Khan after activation and getting rid of Flashbreaker. So I think 3 lightning bolt is fine. I think 4 is maybe too much. And I'm taking here the price of progress with as a form of direct damage. Um, but I'm not 100% sure if it's really needed, especially we are here on the draw and our hand is mediocre. It depends on the assumption that our opponent has no strong turn 1 play, so that we have Wasteland and Bauble with Force, and our opponent applies here Grim Monolith with Tezzeret. So he has likely no threat, because if he had a threat, he can tap the Monolith, activate the Tezzeret, and get at least 6 mana. So I'm thinking our opponent kept the hand on the fate of Monolith, Tezzeret, and a good land. So we are cycling our baubles to find another blue card. So our opponent has to draw a good card in form of Khan or the One Ring. And we missed a little bit on the draws. We land heavy at this point of the game and have no brainstorm. And our opponent has an Ursa Saga, which is really bad news. We have a Wasteland for that. And our opponent is playing Flashbreaker. I'm not going to counter the Flashbreaker. Because I'm thinking if our opponent has no following up, Flashbreaker will not do anything. And he has the Epiphany Needle, which is really unfortunately, because I really would like to counter the Epiphany Needle to get rid of the Urza Saga, but it makes us really weak against One Ring, Kozilek Command, or Khan, so we can't really afford to counter the Needle here, and really have to hope that we find a meltdown at this point of the game to get rid of the Urza Saga token and the Epiphany Needle. And our opponent has even a Chalice as a following up, so really bad news. The Chalice we have to counter because our deck cannot play with active Chalice in play. So we are really screwed at this point of the game. We can only apply our cutter and hope that we draw into action meltdown. But meltdown is live at this point of the game, so we are continuing in playing because our opponent is really empty on his hand. He had no One Ring, no Khan, so I'm thinking he's just playing with the token on the strengths of Tezzeret. And he can easily ultimate the Tezzeret here and make enough pressure with two times the token activation, because the tokens are getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and our own tokens can't really deal with it. That's one reason to trim a little bit on the cutter after boarding. And he has even another Chalice. So really bad news for us. We can't really interact with the Chalice. We only have one draw in finding Meltdown. That's our only out on this point of the game. So we take another draw, and it's a ponder, and from that point we can concede and move on to game 3. So the weakness was that our hand has had a force of will but no blue card, so we gambled a little bit here, and unfortunately our opponent has the needle at a really good timing. For the game 3, I'm getting rid of the price of progress and moving on the lightning bolt, because I was really not feeling good about the price of progress in a really aggressive start from our opponent, and I want to make sure that I can really deal with even a Tezzeret or a Flashbreaker. So I think it's okay to keep 4 lightning bolts in. So I'm sending in the same configuration, but trimmed the price of progress for the 4th lightning bolt in game 3. So we are on the play, our odds are strongly better. We have a decent hand, we have a lot of interaction, but no threat now, for now. But we have a pre-routine to dig into our deck, so that is what we are going to do. we play Pyridine. Hopefully we find a blue card so that our 2 counters are alive, and we find a ponder with a Dragon Ridge Chandler. So we want to draw the ponder so that we can it in an emergency case pitch it to one of the forces. And we have a Dragon Ridge Chandler as following clock. So I think it's okay, and even if we have to force once, we can play Dragon Ridge Chandler with ponder, which is also fine, because the ponder can find us another blue card. And our opponent is leading here with Pith Needle, likely on Wasteland. It's okay, we do not have any kind of Wasteland in our hand for now, and we can deal maybe later with it with Meltdown. And so we are making the play Dragon Ridge Chandler Ponder, hoping to find a blue card on the way. Island can go into our graveyard. So we have for now only 2 types. There's a Bauble and a Core Steel Cutter. So I'm making sure whether I want to draw into it, and I'm thinking it's okay. We want to draw the Bauble, get the Surveil trigger, get rid of the fetch land, and have the Core Steel Cutter on top, and we can decide to crack the Bauble now or in our opponent's turn. So the question is whether we like to draw the cutter or not, and here I'm deciding to crack the Bauble in our turn to draw the Core Steel Cutter. And the reason for that is because I'm thinking our opponent has a slow start, so it's not likely that we have to force twice. And if we force once, we can get 1 card under the cutter and make it at least live. And even if we play the cutter on our next turn, we have the chance of Delirium, get the Dragon Age Channel online, but it's also a good argument for not cracking the Bauble in our turn, and to have the possibility to put it in our graveyard and not drawing it. But I decided here to just that I want to draw the card, so that at least if we force here, we have 1 card deeper, and there is a Flashbreaker, so it's a little bit spicy point. Flashbreaker on its own, you don't want to counter it, but on this stage of the game, I am willing to counter it because our opponent showed us a really slow start. So there is no key, no monolith. He's just relying on his Soul Land and his Ursa's Land, and Wasteland is locked out of the game. So our opponent, we can't interact with his mana base at this point, and the only way we lose from here is if our opponent has a lot of resources to make a double spell turn. And so I'm willing here to counter the Flashbreaker for the tempo advantage, so that our opponent can't overturn us by making huge plays, so that he has to rely on his mana base, and his mana base costs him 2 life per activation, so it will matter in the late game. And we have a good clock. We have 2 Dragon Ridge Chandler and a Core Steel Cutter online, but in the trade-off that we have on this turn, no protection at all. So our opponent is really free to applying a One Ring or a Khan, but the logic behind is here that our opponent doesn't have any kind of board sweeper, and even if he plays a One Ring, it will cost him 2 life, and he gains protection 1 turn. But the turn after, we have 3 mana, we can hardcast Force of Negation with 2 Delirium trigger, so I think it's a pretty good spot to go shields down on this stage of the game, and we will see what our opponent makes from his free spell. And he's playing another Flashbreaker, so he's really digging for resources, and he even has a Lotus Petal to go along with it. So he needs at least 1 artifact more to get his Ursa's Land online, and he has the second Lotus Petal. So now he has all mana in the world, and he can cast scary cards, Khan, the One Ring, and he has a Khan, so it's pretty bad news for us. We can deal with the Khan with an attack of the Dragon Ridge Chandler, but our opponent knows that. So he will likely not go for the combo, and he decides to go for the Ensnaring Bridge, which he can cast immediately in sacking the tokens. So he's shrinking his mana base in exchange for protection. On this point of the game, we are a little bit screwed. Our opponent had a really good turn here with Flash Raker and double Lotus Petal into Khan into Bridge, but that's what we signed up for, and we calculated the risk and decided it was worth it. That's the main point of the game. It's not whether you lose or win, it's whether you make a calculated decision and know your risk. Here I'm going to try to re-equip our cutter, and then notice that reading card explains the card, and we can't reattach our artifact because of the Khan, which is a nullwood effect. So we have a little bit time here because we have two counters, Consign of Memory and Force of Negation, and we have to watch out for the Khan because he can reach for the combo card. So on this point of the game, we make sure that we can draw maybe a Meltdown, and we have Brazen Borrower as an out, and we also can manipulate our graveyard with a Murktide region so that we can shrink our Dragonwitch Chandler and then activate them on the attack phase if we find instant speed, for example. So we have options for at least getting 6 damage through if we find the Murktide. So we have a lot of outs. We have at least 3 Murktides, and our opponent is here going for the all-in plan, and he's paying a lot of life for it, so 4 life points for casting his combo card. And here I'm going to apply Consign with Replicate to counter the artifact and the trigger of the Flash Raker. So the main reason here is that if our opponent want to use his mana, so he's likely more using his Ancient Tomb. So our outs are for now especially bolt into a bolt. So we need at least 3 bolts. We have a Brazen Borrower, a Murktide to shrink our Dragonwitch Chandler, but if we find the Murktide, we need to find an instant speed. So we have for now 3 instants in our graveyard, so Murktide can remove them all. Then we attack, have 6 damage, so there's a little bit trade-off. We need a little bit more, but maybe a cutter re-equip can handle it if our opponent has 2 hand cards, but that's our outs we are playing for. So Meltdown, Brazen Borrower, multiple Lightning Bolts, and Murktide. So if we forget the Lightning Bolts, we have at least 5 life cards in our deck and a lot of cycling through Ponder, Brainstorm, and Preodine. So I think it's fine. We find Delver of Secrets. We do not want to play it. There's no advantage in playing the Delver out. And we have an additional blue card for countering with Force. And we have a second spell for maybe a needed cutter activation. So there's no need for playing it out. Our opponent is taking up his Khan. So we have a clock. Next turn, our opponent can use the Khan. So we can counter something which our opponent is playing here, and he's playing his second Flash Raker. We countered that one with Force of Negation, but I do not think it's changed the outcome of the board. His creatures can't attack, he only can ping us, but we have to keep an eye on the pings because we are getting huge direct damage. And we draw a Murktide. So I'm considering here my options, and I'm sticking to the plan. If we find instant speed, Murktide is lethal because our opponent is at 5. He used Ancient Tomb in casting his Flash Raker. And here my plan is if our opponent uses his Khan for an artifact, we counter it. It doesn't depend what artifact it is, to get at least 2 delirium triggers so that we can find any kind of instant speed. Brainstorm will do it, so that we can play Murktide, remove all instants, attack, play our instant, get our delirium back. That's our game plan at this point of the game. And our opponent took an unneeded risk in going down to 5 life. If he stayed at 7 life, he would not face that kind of lethal line on our side. So I think a huge mistake by our opponent in not seeing that option in shrinking our Dragonwitch Chandlers with a Murktide and getting it back with an instant. But it's okay. We are here to learn and take our experience from it. And here our opponent is deciding what he wants to do. He's really hard considering and maybe using the Khan or playing something else out. And he's sacking his Khan to get maybe some artifact. I think any artifact here is fine because of the direct damage. And our opponent decided to go with a Soul Guide Lantern. I think a really good choice because he can get rid of our graveyard to deal with the Dragon Rage Chandler. He has the trigger and he also can draw a card. I think it's a really good decision. But we are going to force it either ways with a hard cast of the force. And we are looking for any kind of instant. So land will not do it, but so we get rid of that. Take another fresh look. And we find the Brazen Borrower. It's pretty much the best card we can find, but any other instant would have get the job done. And the chances are really high. And we draw the Brazen Borrower, and from that point here we can easily bounce the Ensnaring Bridge, but just play Delver first to get at least one token more in case we need it. So if our opponent maybe has some Kozilek command or something, so I'm not really sure, but I think it's safest land to play the Delver first, get at least one more token trigger and bounce the Ensnaring Bridge. And our opponent concedes, and we will win from here. So 4-1 with only lost to Cephal Breakfast. I think a pretty good one at all.